Just clap. All right, here we go. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtottara to the Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtottara to the Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, so we'll be on page 394 today. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 26th day of June, 2024, in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And before we proceed, if you become more comfortable, you can sit on there or one of the benches. The bench right there. Yeah, no, it's understandable. Okay, that's fine. Okay. And we are on chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge, text 13, near the top of page 394. Mahātmās tumam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajanti ananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam mahātmās tumam partha daivim prakritimashtaha bhajantyānanya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam mahātmās tumam partha daivim prakritimashtaha bhajantyānanya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam mahātmās tumam partha daivim prakritimashtaha bhajantyānanya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. Rambilas. Mahātmās tumam partha daivim prakritimashtaha bhajantyānanya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. Go ahead, David.
Mahātmās tumam partha
Mahātmās tumam partha
daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajantyānya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam.
All righty. Okay. Word by word. Mahātmana, the great souls, too, but mam, unto me, partha, O son of Prita, daivim, divine, prakritim, nature, ashritaha, having taken shelter of, bhajanti, render service, ananya manasaha, without deviation of the mind, gyatva, knowing, bhuta, of creation, adim, the origin, avyayam, inexhaustible. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, O son of Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Purport. In this verse, the description of the mahātmā is clearly given. The first sign of the mahātmā is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of the material nature. And how is this effected? That is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of the material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of the material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of the material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul, mahātmā. The mahātmā does not divert his attention to anything outside of Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a mahātmā, or great soul, develops through association with other mahātmās, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I tried to mitigate the air conditioning. I put the temperature up higher, but it's still going on. Do you think you could figure out how to turn it off? Yeah. See what you can do.
Totally off.
Totally off. Okay, so what is Krishna doing here? He's teaching us, as is often the case, by contrast. Contrast. He, in text 10, for instance, thank you. He expressed that all material nature, this material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So here, as in many verses in the Bhagavad Gita, he's declaring himself to be God. Means that he is overseeing everything, he's conscious of everything, he's in control of everything. But, check text 11, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They don't know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. What's the result of their foolishness? Next verse. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by the demoniac and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruit of activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Okay. Now, notice the last phrase there, Prakriti Mohinim Shrita. They've taken shelter of the bewildering external energy. This is very important. It means that they're always focused on matter and they don't know anything about spirit. By contrast, today's verse describes the mahātmās, whose cardinal feature is Daivim Prakritim Ashrita. You see that? One is Mohinim Ashrita, the material energy, and the Ashrita means they take shelter of the divine energy. Mean that they are always thinking of Krishna and wanting to serve him in their exalted souls. And what's the symptom? What is the characteristic? Bhajanjanana manaso, they worship me without deviation. They're always serving me and worshiping me. Understanding that I am the inexhaustible source of all creation, of the origin. They know me as the Supreme Personality, original and inexhaustible. So then the question is, well, how do they get that way? Because you can become a mahātmā. He's not born a mahātmā. So there's a verse in the 7th chapter that's famous. What is it? Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. Now this is kind of, I think, was quoted in the morning class. In the morning class we're studying the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj. He's a very famous devotee. And in a purport there, this quote this verse is quoted. And the idea is that to understand that Vasudeva is everything. Well, how is he everything? You see? How is he everything? It's not like the polytheists think that you can worship anything and you're worshiping God. That's not how it works. Rather, Krishna is everything because, number one, everything that exists is his energy, either material or spiritual. We are part of the spiritual energy. Spiritual means consciousness. We are eternal. We have never taken birth and we will never die. The body certainly takes birth and dies, but we are not the body. That's the first lesson you learn in Krishna consciousness. We are bodies, but we have bodies, but we are spirit. They're often compared to clothes. You know, wearing this dress. And that Krishna uses that analogy in the 2nd chapter. Vasankti jirnani yata vihaya. Navani gunnate naroparani. Tatashirirani vihaya jirnan yungani sangyati navani dehi. I memorized that verse a long time ago. So he's saying there that just as we eventually give up old clothes that are worn out, throw them in the dumpster or whatever, and take on new clothes. No big trauma, right? We do it all, it happens all the time. Similarly, what is it?
Sometimes a little bit of a trauma.
A little bit of a trauma, okay. If it's a one dear jacket or something we received in our high school graduation or something, yeah, right. True. But compared to the giving up of the body, it's not much. But the body is also like that. When the body wears out, it's just a machine. It's a very complicated, amazing machine that seems to be alive, but it's actually animated by the presence of the Spirit. In the second chapter, Krishna says, "Avinashita tadvidi yena sarvamidam tatam." That what is the kind? It's spread throughout the body. The soul is in the heart, individual, but its symptom is consciousness, and through the bloodstream it spreads throughout the body. So the beating of the heart and the lungs is all, very important. And those parts of the body that don't have any blood in them, like the fingernail, you can cut them; they won't hurt. But if you go a little bit and you hit the flesh, oh, ouch! Right? Because blood flowing there. So the blood flowing, the whole process of how the body works, it's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I like to give this, kind of little syllogy. I mentioned it earlier in these classes. The very complexity of the body, the amazing way in which not just the human body, but all the different species of life are working, is, to me, if you think about it, proof of the existence of God. The intelligence that had to go in to design this, something that can repair itself. I mean, as an older person, I sometimes get injuries. I get little bruises or something, just walking around the house. And then, like I did something here. I don't even know how I got it. It's a little bit of a scrape. So I put the thing in. And I know that after a few days, right, it'll be healed up. So the body is self-healing. So all of that is amazing, and so. But Krishna is present everywhere. He's present in our own hearts as the super soul. He's with us at all times. What does he do there? He gives remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattak smritir jnanam apohanangcha. And he goes on to describe. So, and here, and recently in this chapter, Maya Jakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharasaram. By my superintendence, this whole material energy, Prakriti, is working. It's not working automatically. The scientists say, oh yeah, just like you're in a car, yeah, well this does this, and that's how the car runs. No, it runs because somebody's turning the key, and and that's why these self-driving cars, no. So many accidents. There's so many varieties of things that can happen on the road. How can they program it all in? Every so often, there's a serious accident, some self-driving truck, No, there's nothing self-driving. There's always got to be an intelligence behind it. So Krishna, here, in 7th chapter, this famous verse, Bohonam Janmanam Ante, after many, many births of cultivating knowledge, you see, Jnanavan, one who truly has knowledge, surrenders unto me. Mam papadyate. Understanding that Vasudeva is everything, through his expansions of energies and his personal expansions as super soul, he's creating, maintaining, and ultimately destroying this whole universe. See? So he surrendered, but it's such a very, very rare. Samahātmā sudurlabaha. Sudurlabha means very difficult to find. Someone like that. Srila Prabhupada was such a soul, and he was able to teach us. So here's another verse about the Mahātmā, as opposed to the Duratma, who simply criticizes Krishna, who doesn't recognize his transcendental nature when he appears as a human being. And then what's his fate? Those who are thus bewildered, they're attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, their culture of knowledge are all defeated. So they don't succeed in the mission of life. On the other hand, the mahātmās have taken shelter of the internal energy of the spiritual. Now, what does that really mean? It means that they are actually under the shelter of Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani, or the Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is in charge of all the devotional service. All the devotional service kind of goes through her. We don't often think of it that way, but that's why Prabhupada described it. Radharani is Krishna's most dear servant. She's another expansion of him, Ladini Shakti, the pleasure energy personified. And then that's why she is foremost in loving Krishna and in serving him just like he wants. That's her, And she's not a human being. She's not a jiva soul. She's this personified pleasure energy. And Lakshmi is an expansion of Radharani. So taking shelter means taking shelter of the representative, practically speaking, means taking shelter of the representative of Krishna, who is an acharya. This word acharya is very important. It comes from the word achar, which means behavior. So the characteristic of the acharyas is that they know the scripture, revealed scripture, like Srimad Bhagavad Purana, Bhagavad Gita, and others, bhakti scriptures, and they act accordingly. They act exactly according to the rules and regulations, and they teach. Those three things. They know, they act, and they teach. And so they are representatives of Krishna, and he's very fond and supportive of their activities. If you read Srila Prabhupada's life and how he was able to come to America in his later years and start this movement, it's clear, and Prabhupada explicitly explains it, that just the crossing over from India, he had no money. He couldn't fly in an airplane. He had $7 worth of rupees with him, which is nothing. But he had a sponsor, a lady who owned at that time a shipping line, and so there was a little cabin there that he could live in on the crossing. But it was a difficult crossing. He was 69. He'd never been on a boat before. He got seasick, and he got through 2 heart attacks. And then he knew that if he had a third, he'd be gone. So he took rest, and he had a dream. Krishna came to him in his dream. He said, don't worry. I'm taking charge of the boat, And miraculously, there's so many miracles. The Atlantic Ocean. I grew up basically on the Atlantic Ocean. I grew up in Long Island. We'd go to the beach in the summer, every weekend. And then at a certain point, I lived in Miami as a devotee for 6 years. And Atlantic Ocean was always there. Now, Prabhupada came, I think, basically in mid-August. He celebrated Janmashtami on the boat. He celebrated his 69th birthday on the boat also. So the hurricane season, when I was in Miami, we was always conscious of the hurricane season, which comes around July through October. You have to watch out. These hurricanes bubble up in the Atlantic. And it's just very rough seas at that time. That's when he traveled. He's on the boat in August and September he arrived, But it was very clear. It was very calm. Miraculously. So much so, the captain was there. He brought his wife on the trip, and she was there. So she asked, can you please come back with us too, because we had the best crossing, So he was joking. So that was kind of Krishna's helping him. Krishna's helping him. And it was in every step you can see. He tried so long. It was a whole year in New York, really didn't make much headway. Then he went downtown. I lived in New York, and everything was happening downtown at that time, in the Lower East Side, and also in Greenwich Village, So he had friends there. He immediately started a kirtan program, kirtan and prasadam, basically, and a little talking about Bhagavad Gita. That was his program. And he got some regulars who would come for the kirtan. And the Hare Krishna mantra is so potent that he was getting people who were interested in him and interested in reading. He didn't have any books published, but he had his books that he brought with him. The first canon of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He worked like anything. You can imagine, with no money, he had to get donations, or he couldn't print. It took him 4 or 5 years to print those 3 books. But then when he had them, he said, oh, now I have some ammunition. If you read those books, they're like, the whole thing is there. He put the whole science there in those 3 books. So they had those, and they were reading, and they were experiencing the bliss of chanting, and Prabhupada's wonderful personality, and the cooking was unique, So he was able to get some followers, some sincere followers. And that planting the seed. There's a wonderful multi-volume biography of Srila Prabhupada written by Satsuru Das Goswami. and describing those early days. The first volume, or second volume, the first volume is a lifetime in preparation. So much research to find out, Prabhupada's childhood and growing up and how he struggled in India to start it, but he couldn't do it. So his spiritual master had told him, you should preach in English and you should preach, to the Westerners. So finally, in old age, he did that. And it was incredibly successful for 12 years, from 1965 to 1960 through 1977. He was able to start at the practice, and all over the world, 108 temples and thousands of devotees. Krishna's Shakti. Just that fact, that historical fact, is faith building. That this spiritual energy really works. So Krishna is talking about now the mahātmās as opposed to the duratmas. Those who are devotees, who have taken shelter of the internal energy, means that their whole life is dedicated to service of Krishna and teaching as acharyas. And what is one of their bhajanti manaso? They're always worshiping me without deviated mind. The whole thing is, yoga ultimately means control of the mind, control of the senses. But what are you going to think about? What are you going to fix the mind on? You see, the impersonalists try to fix the mind on the white light. The yogis try to fix the mind on the super soul in the heart. But the bhakti yogis fix their mind on Krishna, and especially in this age, through the chanting of the holy name. This is the main practice, the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. It's not, concocted certainly by Prabhupada or anybody. It's from the Shastra. You'll find in the Upanishads, this famous little Upanishad, and in the Upanishad is the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And then the next verse says, Iti Shodashakam Namnam, Kalikam Shanashanam, Natak Purataropaya, Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. These 18 names, chanting these 18 names, either individually, by japa, meditation, or collectively especially. Kali Kalmasha Nashanam, destroy all the ills and evils caused by the Kali Yuga. The present age is not at all favorable for yoga. There's so much disturbance. The very word Kali means conflict. You can see everywhere. In the home, outside, between nations. So, but all that kalmasha, all that difficulty caused by Kali Yuga can be negated by this mantra, Nashanam, destroyed. Sarva Vedeshu Kali Kalmash Natak Padatorupaya. You can search through all the Vedas, all the Vedic literatures. You won't find a more efficacious means than his chanting of these holy names. And these were given by Krishna himself in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It existed before, the Upanishads were there, but he popularized it, and especially this congregational chanting. It's one thing to meditate on the Hare Krishna mantra, it's very important. But to have the congregational chanting with dancing and musical instruments and celebration, this was was something new. And it broke through all the boundaries, because what are you dealing with in the Kali Yuga? How are you going to find a qualified Brahmin? The whole world is overrun by those who are outside the Vedic culture, let's put it that way. But that's the wonderful thing about Hare Krishna. There's no rules. There's no prerequisites to chanting. Anyone can chant. What's the only prerequisite? A little faith that you'll get some benefit. All right, let me try it. That's how I started. I was doing yoga already, chanting Om, this and that. Then I visited the temple, and I saw the devotees, and that was important, see how blissful they were and peaceful. I said, okay, this looks like a good process to try. So I started chanting. Had a job, everything. I was chanting a couple of rounds, go to work. As I went to work, I would chant. I worked in a hospital. And, I didn't know what I was doing. I said, well, maybe I can project this mantra, see if I can cure the patients, Didn't work. Although later I had some success. I will tell that story another time. But anyway, it's very enthralling. If you really concentrate on it, you can see there's a real potency here. And when the potency is, basically you feel much more peaceful and hopeful and joyful, and you begin to see, if you're reading the books especially, you begin to see the world differently. And you can see, oh, this person is in the mode of passion. I don't want to really associate so much, with that. And you get drawn to associate with devotees. That's the important thing. So the characteristic, bhajanjanana manaso, they're always worshiping me. Either within, even at night, Prabhupada said 24 hours a day, you try to chant. Well, how do you do that? Well, if you're chanting so much, and so you can dream of Krishna. Gyatva Bhutanam, they understand that I am the source of all creation, the origin of everything, Bhutadim, and I'm inexhaustible. So Srila Prabhupada, endeavored to create mahātmās, through the process of devotionals. He himself was certainly a mahātmā. And we'll see in the next verse, these verses are all very famous, with some of the characteristics of the mahātmā. And they're basically what is carried on in the Krishna consciousness movement as Gaudiya Vaishnavism coming down. These descriptions of the devotee, the mahātmās, pertain to all the great devotees of Lord Chaitanya coming down, and also we can aspire for that, because it's within our ability. We can chant or not chant. We can eat meat or we can give it up. I've been a vegetarian more than the years I've been a devotee. I've been a devotee for 51 years, and I started being a vegetarian in 1969. So that's like 55 years, and I never felt that it was very detrimental. So I'm proof that you don't need meat. And such a one, economically, ecologically, climatologically, if they would, somehow, if we close down the slaughterhouses, which is so gruesome, the whole earth would be benefited. It's just harmful, and the karma involved is just horrific. Prabhupada said, the wars are going on because of this massive cow slaughter that's going on all over the world. It's a very deleterious effect. So, if there are any questions on this verse, we can try to answer them. Otherwise, we can go on. Yes, Prabhu.
What is the essence of worship from an internal perspective, and what distinguishes it from meditation?
Well, it's very close to meditation. But meditation, usually you think, I'm meditating, and then I stop meditating. Meditating means you're shutting everything out and you're just focusing. But really, the essence is the absorption of the mind, of the thought, remembrance. Avismati Krishna Badada Bindayo Chinoti Badrani Chishangdanodi. There's a verse in the 12th canto. It's a wonderful verse. There's 12 verses, 8 verses, that are centering on the glories of hearing and chanting and remembering. I call it the, Kṛṣṇa Kathashtaka, because it's all based on hearing sounds about Krishna, beginning with the holy name. The first word in the Ashtaka is Sankirtanam. Sankirtyamano Bhagavat Ananta Shrutana Bhava Vasanang Hipungsam Pavishya Chittam Vidanoti Shesham. I forget the last time. But he's saying there that this congregational chanting and hearing of Krishna's glories, not just only the holy name, Bhagavana Shrutana Bhava Vasanam Hipungsam, and hearing about his powerful activities and qualities, enters into the heart. And then Krishna, from within the heart, cleanses away all of the unwanted things, the doubts and the depression and the obsessions and all these different things, and bad karma. Shrutana Bhava Sankirtyamano Bhagavan Ananta Shrutana Bhava Vasanang Hipungsam Pravishya Chittam Vidinoti Shesham. He enters into the heart, he's already there, but he manifests in the heart. Chittam Vidinoti Shesham, he cleanses away all these unwanted things from the heart. Yatatamoko Brahmavati Vata, that's the last line. Just like the sun rises and cleanses away the darkness, or a powerful wind comes and blows away any fog, even in some cave or something, it'll get in there. So he's contrary. Mishagadasa yasatira sakata nakattadeha bhagavan adhoksaja tadeva satyam tadohaiva mangalam tadeva punyam bhagavad gunodiyam tadeva ramyam ruchiram nabangdabang tadeva shoshana tadeva shokarnava shoshanang nanang yaduttama shloki yashonagayiti. So what he's contrasting Krishna Katha with sounds that degrade us. We should always remember that our consciousness is mostly produced by sound. If you go to school, you listen to so many lessons and things like that. So the whole thing is what you hear and what you chant, or what you read and what you write. So he says, on the other hand, those sounds which have nothing to do with Krishna are false, asati asatkata nakatyate bhagavana hoksha, and simply harmful to listen to. So then he has this wonderful 6 lines about the glories of hearing pure Krishna Katha. Tadeva satyam, tadohaiva mangalam, tadeva ramyam, ruchidang nabang tadeva shoshana vashoshanang yadittamashloki yashona giyate. I may have missed a line or two. On the other hand, those words which truly describe Krishna, like Bhagavad Gita as it is, they are true, tadeva satyam, and very auspicious to hear. Tadaiva mangalam. And they're ramyam, very delightful, and manaso mahotsavam, an eternal festival for the mind. I love that line. So this is the basic means by which we can always think of Krishna. This is our meditation, to always remember through hearing and chanting and describing and discussing. It's a very easy process. You don't have to, it doesn't matter how old you are, what your gender is, you don't have to be a Sanskrit scholar, you can come and read Krishna book, Prabhupada's book about, that was one of the foundational act of mercy of Prabhupada, to translate these books into English. Because English is the root language. From there, they got into 80 different languages. You can get it in Russian, you can get it in Hindi, you can get it in Chinese, everything. But that translated to English was the key, So that we have access to all this. So the final verse of this Ashtaka is describing the benefits of constant remembrance of Krishna. Avismriti means no forgetting. I worked on this book, and we had remembering Krishna, Avismriti. No, it's more than remembering. Remembrance is great, but this is not forgetting. That means you remember and don't forget. That's a constant remembrance. That's equivalent to the samadhi of the yogis. You see, that's the idea. So, avismriti, here's the benefits of constant remembrance. We get some of the benefits by partial remembrance, but you can imagine if we were constant remembrance. That comes from cleansing the heart of all other desires. So, avismriti, Krishna padada bindayo, chinotya badhrani chashantanoti, chantanoti, sattvasya shuddhim padamātmā bhaktim jnanam cha vijnana viraga yuktam. So here's the benefits of this constant remembrance which we're trying to achieve, of Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna padana bindayo. Chinotya badhrani, all inauspicious things are destroyed in your life, in your heart and in your consciousness. Chinotya badhrani cha shantanoti. The word sham is related to the word shambhu. That's a word for Shiva, right? Or sankarshan. So that means giving good fortune. Shangtanoti. So the abundras, the harmful things in your consciousness that are impeding you and tormenting you, they're all cleansed away by Krishna. And rather, your good fortune is expanded by this constant remembrance. Shangtanoti. And then what else happens? Sattvasya shuddhim. Your very existence becomes purified. Purified of lust, anger, and greed, the lower modes of nature, all of this. It's just like Cheto Darpana Marjanam. This is the first phrase of the first verse of the Shikshastaka. Cleansing, cleansing, cleansing. So, Sattvasya Shuddham, Padamātmā Bhaktim. This is constant memory. It nourishes your devotional service to the Supreme Soul, Krishna. You see? Characterized by knowledge, realized knowledge. One is that I know I am the soul, I'm eternal, and that's jnana. Vijnana means I actually experience the soul, I see the soul. You see the Supreme Soul. Jnana, vijnana, and vairagya, detachment from everything else. So that's the result of the three primary practices in devotional service: hearing about Krishna, hearing the holy name, chanting about Krishna, chanting the holy name, and remembering. Those lead to remembrance, you see. So the hearing, chanting, remembering, that's the equivalent of samadhi. You can, and if you do it properly, and you cut out all of the things that distract you from that, so you're doing it, then you come to the point of constant remembrance even when you're sleeping. And that's equivalent, even better than the samadhi of the yogis and so forth, which is kind of static. This is very dynamic. Even while you're eating, you're talking, you're moving, you're doing everything, you're remembering Krishna. You're seeing, like, I described the 7th chapter, the first step. That my energies, this earth, the heart matter, the liquid, the fiery energy, earth, water, fire, air, gases, ether, the space that everything is in. Then the mind, the intelligence, ego, these 8 are my external separated material energies. These are the building blocks for everything, including our own bodies. They're Krishna's energy. And how we experience them, he says, okay, you want to remember me? Remember me all the time? This is the easiest way. Rasoham apsakonteya pabasmi shashisuryayo pranabhaksava vedeshu shabdake purushanu. I am the taste of water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. You see? How is he light? Well, where did the sun come from? It comes from Krishna. It's part of his energy and our ability to see it. So that's also coming from Krishna. So in that way, he is the light of the sun and the moon. Everything we experience, he's in every atom as a supersoul. So if you remember that, and you're not trying to exploit material nature for your own pleasure, then that covers your knowledge. You can't simultaneously remember Krishna as the owner and enjoyer of everything, and at the same time try to enjoy. It's contradictory, you see. So that's why Maya helps, it covers us. So we want to get uncovered. And that comes through service and trying to use everything where possible in the service of reconnecting. So it's much more wholesome for the soul to be in that mood, because you're not giving up your personality, you're purifying your personality. Whereas the impersonalists, as the name implies, they try to give up their personhood, because that to them that's synonymous with birth, death, old age, and disease. They realize that you have a spiritual personality, a spiritual body, a spiritual function, a spiritual world. No, for them the ultimate is the Brahman, the Brahmajyoti, because the whole purpose is, the whole goal is, let me get free from birth, old age, disease, and death. You see? But that's a negative thing. That doesn't tell you anything about your eternal function in the spiritual world. You're giving all that up. And it's unfulfilling, and therefore they come down from that. No one can just be satisfied with just merging into the Brahmajyoti, because we're eternal persons. We're spiritual persons with activities and desires, spiritual desires. So that's why, this is from the Shastra. Aruha Kṛṣṇa parang patatato patanchado radridiyashmanangriya. A few, not all, a few through tremendous austerities and determination can subdue the mind and meditate on the white light and then rise up to Brahman and be there for who knows how long. Just saying, oh, I'm free, I'm God, But then, where's anyone else? There's no one else there. I've never been in one of these, but you've heard of them, the sensory deprivation chambers, where they have the perfect temperature and you could float in there. Have you ever been in one of those? I've only heard about it, but they exist. So you go in there and then but then after a while you say, wait a minute, I got to go to work. I got to get out of here. You can't be happy forever. But that's like the Brahmajyoti. There's nothing to do. It's ultimately boring. Okay, I'm free. It's like getting out of the hospital. You've been in an accident and you've been in traction for weeks. You say, when am I going to get out of here? So finally, the doctor says, okay, you can get out. Just wear this cane or take this walker. So finally, you get out. And then what do? Do you sit down on a bench and then you say, now I'm finally free? No. You try to go home and resume what you were doing. Right? You want to go back to your activities. Just getting free from birth, old age, disease, and death is not sufficient. And ultimately, devotees lose their interest in that because they're overwhelmed with the pleasure of serving Krishna from moment to moment. That's why Lord Chaitanya, in his famous Shikshastika, he wrote 8 verses of instruction on the holy name. Very important. And in his 4th verse, and 5th verse, he tells us, gives us an example of what we should pray for. He's taking the role of a bhakta who's progressing in devotion. So he gives us the hint there. He said, Nadanang najanang nasundarim kapitam vajagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishwade bhavatad bhakteda hoituki tvahi. So here's what he doesn't pray for. But people go to heaven, they go to Indra to pray for, they go to church to pray for, but devotees don't pray for it. He's teaching it. Wealth and women, followers, the fruits of mundane piety, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. And as soon as he says in each future birth, he says, I don't even want liberation. You see? He just wants that pleasure of serving Krishna. You can imagine how pleasurable it is. You know? And even our little attempts to do it here, you know, with the Westerners, that's keeping us enthralled, you know? I mean, I don't, it's not like, you know, I have to grit my teeth and make sure I don't get, you know, swept away by a desire to smoke a joint or something, you know. I used to do that in 1968. How many years was that ago? 56, you know. Thank God I never got into heavy drugs, you know. I mean, I'll tell you a little story. It's just, I'm lying there. I mean, my whole life could have been different. I had an apartment with some friends, you know, but I never took LSD. They did sometimes. I had a tab of LSD in my hand, you know. And I'm kind of lying in this chair, and I think, should I take this now or not? You know, I've never taken it, you know. And by Krishna's grace, he said, no. All alone, you know, I knew, you heard about bad trips and everything. You know, no. So I was saved from that. But I mean, you know, I was just, you had to be, you know, marijuana, and it's like today. But that absolutely holds no attraction for me. I mean, sometimes, you know, you live in these apartments, it's legal now, you can, oh yeah, they're smoking, you know, you can smoke, you know, some of my neighbors, you know. There's nothing there, absolutely not. The Krishna consciousness, I had a friend, a close friend in 1978. I was living in LA, and I was working on the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. But Prabhupada wrote me a letter. He wrote me one letter. It's a long story, I'll make it short. Please go to work with the Bhaktivedanta Institute. He was, in the last year, he was very much into the scientific preaching. You know, and Bhakti Swarup Damodar was a PhD in science. He was an Indian gentleman who had joined. He was initiated. So, but before that, in the year leading up to my leaving LA, this devotee named Kushakrata, he was like he spent some time here distributing, but he was always a little eccentric, you know. He would distribute books, but he wouldn't really approach people. He would just hold the book out. You know, he had a big sweatshirt on, hold the book. He did a book every now and then. But he was a genius. He taught himself Sanskrit, and he started translating the works of the Goswamis, beginning with Rupa Goswami's Stavamala. And I'd already tasted some of the verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita is a wonderful book in and of itself. Wonderful book Prabhupada gave us. And the beauty of the Sanskrit language and the versatility of it, what you can do, because I was always into rhythm. My father was a drummer. I kind of had it in my genes, you know, although I never learned to really play the drum properly. But the Sanskrit just enthralled me. I'll give you a sample. Here's a verse, when I was working on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's so many verses about Lord Chaitanya. Smita loka shokam hadachita katam yasya padito girang tu prarambaka kushalapataling padalabhayati padalambaka kanva panayati nahi premanabaham sadevas chaitanya kutadadadadana kupayatu. You can imagine how, if you know what each word means, and it puts it, it's a complete meditation. You know, it's such a wonderful. And what that word, I'll just give. I didn't put that one into a poem. Maybe I'll give you another one that has a poem. Smita Loka Shokam. This is written by Rupa Goswami at the beginning of his Stavamala, one of the 8 verse poems. These are called Ashtakas about Lord Chaitanya. So Smita Loka means his smiling glance. Shokam Hadati. He destroys all lamentation in the world. Smita Loka Shokam Hadati Dikatam in the universe. Palito. His words, Gidantu Pradamba Kushalapataling Pallavayati, expand the good fortune of whoever hears them, Kushalapataling Pallavayati. And taking shelter of his lotus feet, Padalamba Kangva Panayati Nahi Prema. How could it not result in getting love of God? You see? And then the last line, which is repeated as a refrain line, Sadevas Chaitanya Kutadadadagna Kripayatu, may he show us his causeless mercy. And so then, back about 10 years ago, I started taking some of these verses and putting them into English poetry, because I realized that I can chant these and get into it, but most devotees don't know them, and so the Sanskrit doesn't mean much. But if I had some English poetry, they'll get something. So here's one of my favorite all-time verses, and it's a meditation on Krishna by the gopis of Krishna walking into the forest of Vrindavan. You ever notice this? Barhapidam. This is a different meter. Barhapidam. It's like a roller coaster. Barhapidam natavadabapu karnayo karnikaram. Bimbran vasak kanakakapisham vaidiyam dinchamalam. Randran veno adadasudeya puriyan gopa vrindaya vrindaranyam sopadanamanam prabhisham gita kirti. You know. And so I put in a poem, with lovely peacock plume upon his head, and fragrant flower placed upon each ear, he enters Braja's wood with graceful tread, a handsome dancing actor without peer. His golden yellow raiment brightly glows, his splendid garland reaches to his knees, and from his luscious lips the nectar flows, and fills his flute with charming melodies. As Krishna thus begins his blissful day, with cowherd friends who sing his glory sweet, he beautifies Vrindavan's forest way, with fine impressions of his lotus feet. You see? So even in the English, it's... And because these are eternal pastimes, because Krishna is our best friend, and you know, he appreciates that, and he gives you a transcendental taste of pleasure. You know. Now I'm not a youngster anymore. I'm 76, but that's as fresh as it was when I learned it when I was 25 or whatever it was. You know, the point is, material pleasure. You come to a point, oh, I can't enjoy that anymore. Oh my God, you know, let me go to the doctor. Maybe I need to repair it. It's tragic. It's tragic, and it just degrades the human being, the sense gratification. But this transcendental sound regulation, beginning with the holy name, which is everything, uplifts the soul and gives you a taste of this transcendental pleasure, which can draw you all the way back to the spiritual world, if you do it right. Yes, there are austerities, because we're so conditioned to trying to enjoy in this material world. But we could, by the power of the holy name and the acharyas and Krishna himself, he can help us to transcend it. So, Ram Vilas, any questions? Yes, please. But we have where is it? Yeah, we have the mics, because we have an audience.
Quite loud anyway. So.
We have an audience. They won't hear unless you speak into it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're out there.
I didn't realize. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how related this is, and I think probably you've covered some of this, but it's more how you deal with things in the moment, and taking the specific example of, say, criticism. Right? So if someone in that moment is criticizing an activity that you're doing, perhaps something that you're feeling pretty proud of, like taking even the situation of the Gita, right? And you've read some verse from the Gita,
right,
and then you're openly mocked, like how could you understand anything, even though that's not what, you're trying, it's your first step. And even something, not even taking criticism, like it hurts, how do you deal with it, and even advice. So unsolicited advice, from someone who's not qualified, but they feel the need to advise you, making assumptions. And I'll give you a silly example. Like my background, I'm also like yourself. I don't know about you indeed, but you mentioned you'd worked in a hospital.
Yeah,
I have that background quite extensively in the past, and now I'm in a different industry, let's say. And so there's an example I remember like this where, I don't know if you've heard of Enrico Fermi.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so he was, I think the story was he was on the metro, New York metro, and he was just looking through a complex problem, and someone looked over his shoulder and said, oh yeah, I think you can solve that with iteration by parts, but it's been a while. And the guy was a bright guy, he's a high school teacher. He had no idea he was talking to Enrico Fermi, probably one of the greatest minds in physics.
I know, sure. Yeah.
So again, felt like, oh, this person's struggling, and I can give this person unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
Just an example. How does one deal with the emotions that come through if one's not at the stage of like self-realization in that moment?
Yeah, the thing is, get the mic. One of the qualities that we try to develop is tolerance. Tolerance is important, very important. There's a whole other ashtaka that I found in the Bhagavatam. I won't be able to deal with it this time as well. I have to close up. But it's called the Sadhu Sangashtaka. The eight verses about the importance of being a sadhu and associating with sadhus. And 325, third canto, 25th chapter, 20, verse 20 through 27. That's 8 verses. But anyway, so he describes, here's the characteristics of a real sadhu, who's a real devotee, and we personified by Prahlad Maharaj, who was dealing in the morning. But he says, Tatikshaba karunika suridak sarvadehinam ajata shatravak shanta saravak sadhubhushana. And it directly relates to your question. So the first quality is this tatikshaba, which means tolerance. Not losing one's cool, not taking it personally, not rejecting the person because they made you like that. Because the next quality is karunika, means full of compassion, full of mercy. Here's someone who doesn't really know, and it's perfect with Enrico Fermi, doesn't know, anything. So he's criticizing for some external reason, for whatever. So maybe this person, can be brought around, because that's happened in our movement. People who are not only even accosting the devotees, they became devotees because they were shown some mercy, Mostly given prasadam, that usually does the trick. Suridak sarvadehinam, the friend of all living beings. Ajata shatava, having no enmity. Shanda, peaceful. These are the ornaments of a sadhu. Now, how do you get those? By becoming advanced in devotional service. By actually coming to the point of feeling Krishna's presence at every moment and serving him with love and feeling the reciprocation, then you can let these things roll off your back. You don't take it personally. Prabhupada was personally attacked, not physically, but he would have interviews with so many people. And one time there was they brought a professor, but it was an Indian professor. He turned out to be a Mayavadi, and he was railing away against Prabhupada. Finally they had to say, it's time to leave, sir, like that. So so the devotees were all upset, and what should we do with him? Prabhupada said, so I said, maybe we should just forgive him, I must have done something in my past life with him, and it's just getting it back, So the point is, when you have that, Krishna consciousness within you, these things they don't disturb you, because you have your solid relationship. It's there, and you're always feeling the bliss and the protection. And Prahlad Maharaj, he was an example. As a child, his father was a huge demon. And his father, he was preaching devotional service to the other boys in the class. He was undermining the whole kingdom. And so his father decided he has to kill his own son, But Prahlad was so peaceful and meditating on Krishna, he was protected. They couldn't kill him. And finally, they would try to kill him, and the Shringadev came out, the Shringadev, half man, half lion, and tore him apart. So the key is to be strongly Krishna conscious, surrender to Krishna, and then you develop this tolerance, and you can maintain your cool even under that kind of stress. I'm sorry, Prabhu, the curtains are going to open, so but we will resume on Monday. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Okay, we will be room with 6:14. I know. Okay.